Well, guys, we're kind of running out of time. I was going to prompt go back to the challenge at the start of this, and I was going to ask. So that we our connection of strategy to delivery. Do we all appreciate that there are issues communicating, cascading, prioritizing, uh, defining measures, and having IT. I think I've heard stuff from Veronica, who's at the sharp end of it, who's basically having issues getting a shared meaning. Um, so I think we are, and heard David talking about, well, this is the strategic approach, and not only is it formulation, but it should be about the whole strategic cascade. I sense a disparity there between what the strategist's view mindset is and what the practitioner's reality is. Maybe Veronica, David, would you comment on that? What I'm hearing a gap that the strategy is good and it should be done like this, but the PMO perspective is, well, it's not necessarily.
Well, I think David alluded to it. Perhaps I'm not speaking for you, of course, David, but I thought it was very interesting that your model had those five stages. And if we think about organizationally, where do they tend to sit? And the answer is probably one sits with somebody, often a consultancy or somebody who comes in for a very temporary period of time, or an interim, something like that, no long-term capability, who will define a strategy or work to define a strategy and then move on. But there might be some kind of strategist there. The other four parts, they tend not to happen at all. Or the PMO will end up with one or two parts of them. Maybe one part sits with the business, it's not well articulated. Maybe we do one and five, not the three and the like. That's what I think. I think in most organizations, if we did that diagram on a board and pointed at it and said who owns each of those steps or what function serves those steps, we'd very quickly struggle.
If I may jump in, David, I think the reason for that is strategic realization usually don't happen on the change side of the organization. The actual realization you see on the run side, which is a significant stuff. And if prioritization is around change, it is not just about BA operations. There is a whole lot of other organization on the run side where actually the effects of strategy are felt. Change rarely delivers a strategy. It is the combination of change and run. Then you see the results of the strategy. That is where
That's
people get it, slightly lopsided onto one side.
that's a massive point, Kiran, that we can only get so much value out of prioritizing our projects because we need to prioritize the workloads that are deriving benefit or working alongside those projects. But David Booth, did you want to sort of respond to my aspersion cast?
Yeah, in terms of, I suppose what I was trying to articulate was the need for a holistic approach that encompasses that. So, and Veronica, you were talking about the five stages as being normally owned by different people or departments. Part of the capability, the strategy capability you need to build in an organization is the fact that they're not owned purely by a central department. You cascade that through. So it's a traditional approach that you have a high level project team, consultants, come in and deliver a strategy, you hand it over, and then somebody says, it's not sequential. It mustn't be sequential. You don't get the dynamic flow. So how within the organization? And this is what I think, going back to big, this is what is at the essence of that, is how you're building and how you're having the conversations to build the accountability, to build the communication flows, to build the information flows within the organization. And I stress, you won't get it perfect. No organization is perfect in doing it. But it's how you try and get that greater integration so that it becomes part of a dynamic movement forward of the organization to delivering that strategy both ways around. So I don't see a divide, and I don't see necessarily a handing off of responsibility. It's part of how you bring it all together and flow it through the organization to make it work, and how you develop the capabilities and the improvement into how your organization works to do that.
So how do we trigger that? That's the thing. And Alex has got a question, but to me, it's like if that isn't happening now, the proposition here is that can we use the need to prioritize as the trigger to get those things working better? But Alex, you had something to say.
Yeah, it's to go on with what Kieran just said, but has actually been my premise throughout this whole discussion. I mean, Dan's chart seemed to be more portfolio focused, but it is run in change in harmony. If you're coming from the C-suite down, the C-suite thing wants things done. Is that through formal change? Is that through BAU change? Is it just a slightly different focus within BAU with run? So I had never thought of this discussion as just being about formal change, projects, programs, portfolios. It has to be across all parts of the organization. Otherwise, the prioritization, in my view, is just a bonkers concept that you're never going to achieve. That's my two penneth on the subject.
I still think to achieve that integration, you need clear owners, though. Even if it is the CEO driving it through, somebody needs to own that happening, or it will not happen. Preferably not the CEO, preferably more like a coup or whoever, but someone
usually I
needs
see
to have a
two
name.
groups participating. That COO's organization brings them together. They are almost head in the cats, even though they know it is the collective excuse this accountability reporting into the board is how I see in large organizations. But COO brings it together quite often.
Can we and should we prioritize if we don't have some kind of objective and key result cascade? Is prioritization on its own without visibility of the accountabilities that the prioritization would imply? Is there any point in prioritizing unless we've got that cascade and that objectives and key results breakdown?
Well, then priority becomes a theater without that ownership and cascade. What is the point? Like you said, absolutely. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. It has to happen.
So we need to buy into the gap between strategy and delivery. Prioritization is proposed as that moment where we can have a sensible conversation about it. But we need not just the prioritization, we need that further cascade, the breakdown into accountable people and hold them to account with objectives and key results or equivalent. And then we've also then, as Alex and Kieran have said, we've got to not exclude the business as usual workloads from the prioritization modeling. I think
you have to have a holistic approach. Strategy isn't about change. It's not about initiative. It's not about projects. It's not about portfolio. It's not about one department or the other. Strategy is organization. It's about other people in an organization. Again, very, very simple terms. How people in an organization make sense about where it's going, how it's going to get there. And it's that process, that simplicity, and how it's going to do it. It's an ongoing dialogue about it. It's got to be holistic. Any conversation, going back to the, if you like, the premise of this, about whether prioritization is a key to have those conversations. It is a key, but so many other things.
Yeah.
Values can be, resource conflicts, allocations can be that. Any of those can stimulate the conversations that help clarity. What you do need is that clarity of strategy, if you like, the overriding thing, What you do need is you need sufficiently fundamental a measure of the progress, not a 30 red, amber, green projects or whatever,
Yeah.
or the values or whatever. You need something meaningful about that progress as part of the conversation. And you need the willingness. You need the willingness of people in the organization to be able to develop those capabilities to have those conversations with, what was it? Honesty and transparency and values. And that's a journey to achieve in an organization. But it's a journey of progress, of improvement that you say, am I willing to take, even if I don't get it right, even if it's not perfect? And next time we'll learn from how we're doing it and learn how to improve and what we need.
So can I invite anyone else to offer some wrapping up thoughts? So with respect to the exam question, the exam question was, can we use prioritization as a stalking horse to improve the connection of strategy delivery, to trigger the adoption of objectives and key results to help us manage accountability better, to drive us to prioritize across the business, not just in projects. What are people now? Have people got final thoughts on whether that exam question, we've answered that exam question, or any remaining questions that we should remain open? David, you suggested there's a number of perspectives, which I agree with. But Gregor, do you have anything to say, or we'll talk about?
Well, my thought was about when we talk about prioritization, it's really important to make clarity and synchronize, right? So I feel we are a really diverse group here, have different approaches and thinking, and I would really like to see synchronizing us about what are the real challenges and the problems and the solutions in this case, because it is, from my point of view, one of the key problems the organizations have. Not the only one, of course, but then again, if we bring some clarity in the strategic goals, trying to translate those in operative goals, and if we are considering the constraints and the obstacles we are hitting in the execution, and trying to figure out the root causes of those problems, of course, align them to the strategic goals, then we are on the way to do the right actions, improvements. So if we are able to do that in sequential way, with the priorities, adaptable, and dynamic way, depending on the environment we are, I think we are on the way to on the journey, as David said, to incrementally improve ourselves and deliver the speed, the higher the speed of the creating value.
Alex, you had your hand up, and if anyone else has any thoughts,
one thing that everybody's referred to, but I'm going to be more explicit about this. Whatever type of prioritization you have, however good or bad it is, it must be clearly communicated.
Yes.
And if you don't have that level of communication, you are unlikely to achieve your priorities. And I'm talking from a couple of personal examples here, by just a very simple message cascade through, two organizations I can think of as saying, these are our goals, this is where we're trying to get to, and this is how we're planning to get there. And just doing that very simplistically fixed a whole myriad of problems. And in one of the organizations, it was an awful lot of spin where certain directors didn't necessarily want those goals or to go in that direction. And it kept the ship pointing in approximately the right direction.
anyone else got any final remarks?
Yeah,
We need
for
to go and
myself,
have our
David.
dinner.
As you put it, number one, yes, I find on a daily basis that it's not even a stalking horse. These are essential conversations. They affect what we do at a small local day-to-day level, and they affect what we do at a very big, more strategic ongoing level as well. Two, yes, actually the cascade I think is an important part of us. What we're trying to do with the cascade, we're trying to achieve that goal congruence that I was banging on about, aren't we? That is exactly the purpose of that, so of course I support that. But I'd like to thank everybody else for contributing today as well. It was a really good discussion. I really enjoyed it. And Darren and Omawumi, without putting you on the spot at all, you've been sort of here for the whole thing listening. If you had anything you'd like to say or drop in the chat, we would really, really like to hear from you. Or you can always contact us later, of course.
Well, thank you for having me. It's been such an insightful session. Particularly the points that really resonate is the part where everyone sort of agreed on the translation and the understanding of what prioritization is and what value is. I'm a PMO analyst, so I'm a bit down the run, so not within those circles where decisions are made. However, one of the key things that I've found that I've learned from, especially from my previous role, is the fact that certain PMOs are established not as a central theme, but as a support function for a part of the business, and trying to get that consensus on what value means from a strategic point, sometimes get some very, very harsh feedback, so to speak.
Bizarre, isn't it, that we have to get consensus on what value for a strategic objective is? It, for me, it seems like this strategic objective that we really will have a very good feeling for what that value is, as opposed to have to. Yeah, I guess we have to have the conversations, as David puts it. But it's like once we're there, it's like I'm amazed that we're not. Many of us aren't clear on what those values are.
Yeah, just I think what you identified there, Omawumi, is how important that cascade of information is, right? About drawing that line very directly between what we're doing, however sort of localized, and between the strategy. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, folks. Well, unless anyone's got anything else to say, it's I didn't know what was going to happen when I put the challenge. I think Kiran's really been very clear on the structural messaging, and that resonates completely with me. And that prioritization isn't a tactical thing; it has to be part of how the organization works. Veronica, you've sort of given me the idea that people at the front at the sharp end don't always necessarily see how that strategy is cascaded or truly understand the basis for prioritization.
Yeah.
So you kind of do the best you can. David's laid out, well, this is the sensible way to do it, that we need to be holistic, we need to talk, and we need to communicate. And I'm sensing there's a gap between what the right thing to do is and what actually happens is. And Dan said all kinds of stuff around, well, this needs to be a bit of a process, and we need some information and data, and we need to uh, do this systematically, which I completely agree with, whichever way that goes. I'll try and I'll review the transcript. I'll share the transcript. I'll try and draw out some notes. But I think we have. I think we do see that prioritization could be a good place to start this, but there are other places to start that improvement of strategy to delivery. I'll see. I'll do the write up, and we'll see what everyone thinks. But all is left for me to say thank you for your time today. We've run over a little bit, but everyone had lots of good stuff to say. So thank you for participating. Thank you for those that stuck their head out and presented some stuff and talked about some stuff. And well, we'll wait to see what comes back, and I'll look forward to your thoughts and feedback on it, and see if we can get something out there that makes sense to others.
Thanks for organizing this.
Thanks,
It's brilliant,
David.
David.
Thanks.
Thanks a
Really
lot.
good
David.
session.
Bye.
Yeah.
Cheers, guys. Have a good evening.
Cheers.
Thank you.
Bye.